Do you ever wonder why you want to replay some games 1,000 times, while other games you're done after a playthrough? I've created over 50 characters in Skyrim. Stealth Archer, Destruction Mage, Two-Handed Warrior, Stealth Archer. Okay, maybe half of those characters were Stealth Archers. We've all been there, but still, every single time I boot it up, I'm excited about what this character will do differently. What choices will they make? Which factions will they join? Same thing with Fallout. Will I side with the Brotherhood this time? The Railroad? The Institute? Will I be a charismatic smooth talker? Or a brutal raider who shoots first and doesn't bother with questions? But then there's Ghost of Tsushima. Beautiful game. Generally one of the most gorgeous open worlds ever created. I was immersed in the story, captivated by the combat, moved by Jen's journey, beat it, saw the credits roll, and I was done. Completely done. The thought of starting a new game felt exhausting. Same thing happened with Far Cry 6. Finished the story, liberated all the outposts, cleared the map, and the second those credits rolled, I uninstalled it. No desire to go back, none. So what's the difference? It's not about quality. Ghost of Tsushima is a masterpiece in many ways, and it's not about the content either. Far Cry 6 has a massive map filled with activities. It's something more fundamental than that. What makes a world worth returning to versus leaving behind? I've discovered there's just about 3 rules that make or break the replayability of a game, and I want you to explore them with me. Take Breath of the Wild. You climb your first Sheikah tower, the tower activates, and it reveals the topography? Just the landscape. Mountains, rivers, valleys. That's it. No quest markers, shrine locations, or collectibles marked on the map. You can see the world, but have no idea what was actually in it. So you're exploring, and you see this weird rock formation, just something that looked a little too deliberate to be random. You investigate, and you find a Korak hiding there. A few hours later, and you notice a pattern of statues on a cliff. Then you're experimenting with the physics. Can I freeze this enemy and shove him off a cliff? Can I use this metal box as a weapon? Can I shield surf down this mountain? The game never told you these things were possible. You just tried stuff, and it worked. Fast forward to your second playthrough, and you're finding shrines you completely walked past the first time, routes you didn't even know existed, solutions to puzzles you solved completely differently before. Now let's talk about Far Cry 6. You climb a radio tower, synchronize it, and your map explodes with icons. Outposts to liberate, marked. Collectibles to find, marked. Animals to hunt, marked. Undiscovered locations aren't actually undiscovered. They're just grayed out icons waiting for you to check them off. You clear the outpost, you collect the propaganda posters, you hunt the rare animals, you liberate the region. The game shows you a completion percentage. When you finish Far Cry 6 and thought about playing it again, it doesn't bring any new magic. You knew exactly where every outpost was, exactly where every collectible was hidden, exactly what you'd be doing. The same checklist, but the second time through. Can you spot the difference yet? Take another example, Elden Ring. You completely missed Khalid on your first playthrough. Just didn't go that direction. You missed Mogwin Palace entirely. You didn't find Blade until your second playthrough because you never thought to go back to the Mistwood after hearing the howling. NPCs moved around, quests progressed without you, entire storylines happened that you weren't part of. The community is still finding secrets in Elden Ring years after release. Hidden areas, NPC interactions, questline triggers that require incredibly specific actions. Compare that to Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You synchronize a viewpoint and your map vomits icons at you. Wealth, mysteries, artifacts, world events, plus a completion percentage for each region so you know exactly how much of the checklist you've finished. Even the exploration mode just gives you a big circle showing the general area instead of an exact marker. You're still being told where everything is. Horizon Forbidden West does the exact same thing. You climb a tall neck, and it reveals all points of interest. Side quests appear with recommended levels. The game guides you to everything and makes sure you don't miss anything important. And that's the problem, isn't it? That's the first principle. Discovery versus completion. Discovery creates unique experiences. Your path through the world. Your stumbled upon secrets. Completion creates identical experiences. The path that developers marked out for you. You can only discover something once. You can't be surprised by something you already know is there. You can't rediscover what you've already found. When your open world is designed around completion, around making sure you see everything, collect everything, check off everything, replayability dies the moment you finish. Because what's left? You already know where everything is, but when your world is designed around discovery, hiding secrets, rewarding curiosity, letting you miss things, every playthrough can be different. Different paths, different discoveries, different solutions, and most importantly, the desire to go back and find what you missed. If your world shows you everything on the map, why would you explore it twice? Now that we've established the importance of having something to discover, we also have to realize it's not the whole picture. Because here's something weird. I can boot up Skyrim right now, create a new character, and have a genuinely different experience than my last playthrough. Not just, I found different secrets. Different. Fundamentally different. Like I'm playing a different game. But Ghost of Tsushima? I love that game. Beat it, felt satisfied, and then nothing. The idea of starting over felt like work. And it's not because Ghost of Tsushima is worse than Skyrim. In some ways, it's more polished, more focused, more carefully crafted. So what's going on here? Let me walk you through what happens when you play Skyrim as a stealth archer versus a destruction mage. The stealth archer sneaks through dungeons, picks off enemies one by one from the shadows, mostly avoiding confrontation. The destruction mage charges in, fire and lightning blazing, doesn't care about stealth at all. These don't feel like different stat allocations. They feel like different games, different approaches to every dungeon, every encounter, every problem the game throws at you. Then there's faction choices. Join the Dark Brotherhood, and certain content logs out. Side with the Stormcloaks, and the Imperial quest line closes. The game actively prevents you from seeing everything in one playthrough. Not because of discovery, you know these factions exist, but because you have to choose. And then we haven't even talked about the mods. We've all tried to pickpocket Ysolda in hopes of seeing some titties. We've all tried to kill children to see if they're only downed, not killed. Mods give us all of that. Raw Donkin Ysolda? Hell yes! Being able to wield a giant club and smash dead children into space? Now you can! The emergent roleplay that these systems enable really makes it work. You can decide, I'm playing a vampire who only feeds at night, or I'm playing a character who refuses to use bows, and the game's systems are deep enough to support that. The game doesn't explicitly tell you to play this way, it just gives you the tools and lets you figure out what's possible. Now, let's talk about Ghost of Tsushima. The combat is beautiful, genuinely some of the most gorging sword fighting I've experienced in a game. But there's one optimal path through most encounters. The stances are essentially rock, paper, scissors. This stance beats this enemy type, that stance beats that enemy type. There's no build variety. Every player ends up with the same abilities by the end, the same tools, the same approach. The side content is meticulously crafted. Every mission feels hand-designed, polished, but it's identical for everyone who plays it. You don't have meaningful choices about how to approach problems. So your second playthrough is just the same experience in the same order. Halo Infinite has a similar problem, but worse. The campaign is a linear story wearing an open world costume. You capture bases that are all identical. There's no build variety, no meaningful choices, no systems to experiment with. The game wants you to replay it, but not the campaign, the multiplayer. And here's where it gets cynical. The replayability becomes a live service model. Season passes, FOMO mechanics, drip-fed content. They're actively confusing making players grind with making players want to return. So here's the second principle. It's about what you're actually building, systems versus content. Content is finite. You can exhaust it. Systems are infinite. You cannot exhaust well-designed systems. When developers ask, how much content should we add to keep players engaged? They're asking the wrong question. The right question is, how many ways can players interact with what we built? Replayable games give you tools and ask, what will you do? Disposable games give you content and say, look what we made. Think about it this way. When you consider replaying a game, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about experiencing something again? Or doing something different? If it's experiencing, seeing the same story beats, the same scripted moments, the same carefully crafted content, that's not replayability. But if it's doing, trying a different build, making different choices, experimenting with different approaches, then you've got actual replay value. Because you're not consuming content twice, you're exploring systems in a new way. Discovery and systems form the baseline for replayability. But there's a third thing happening here that's maybe the most insidious. Some games give you choices that don't actually matter, and this is worse than no choices at all. Let me explain why. When a game railroads you with no pretense of choice, you know what you're getting. You're along for the ride, and that's fine. Lots of great games are linear, but when a game promises you choices and lets you pick between different paths only to funnel you to the exact same outcome regardless, that's a betrayal. It's teaching you that your agency is fake. Cyberpunk 2077 is the poster child for this. You start the game by choosing your life path: Street Kid, Nomad, or Corpo. The marketing promised that these would fundamentally shape your experience. You'd have different connections, different knowledge, different ways of navigating the night city based off your background. For about 20 minutes, that's true. You get a unique intro sequence, and then you're in the exact same game as everyone else. The life path becomes a dialogue flavor, but it doesn't actually change anything. The same doors open for you, the same quests trigger, the same outcomes occur when you're a Street Kid, Nomad, or Corpo. Most of the dialogue choices in Cyberpunk follow the same pattern. You're given 4 responses that look different: aggressive, diplomatic, joking, neutral, but they're just different flavors of the same answer. They all lead to the same place. The illusion of choice is worse than railroading because it feels like a lie. Compare that to Fallout. If you side with the Brotherhood of Steel, you lock yourself out of the railroad questline. Those missions are gone. You cannot play them. If you destroy the Institute, that entire faction's worth of content is inaccessible. NPCs remember your actions. Different builds open genuinely different solutions. A high charisma character can talk past encounters that a combat character has to fight through. A stealthy character can avoid confrontations entirely that other builds have to face head on. Each playthrough lets you explore paths that you literally couldn't take before because you were committed to different factions, different approaches, different philosophies. That's the real choice, which is also the third rule. Real consequences create real replay value. If every choice leads to the same destination, why would you choose differently next time? The point is to make those branches meaningful enough that players want to see what they missed. Here's the question you should ask: does my second playthrough let me see the path I didn't take, or am I just walking the same path I already walked? If Cyberpunk had actually made life paths matter, if Street Kids had connections to fixers who wouldn't trust Corpos, if Corpos could access corporate facilities that Nomads couldn't enter, if your background genuinely affected how major NPCs treated you throughout the entire story, then choosing a different life path on your second playthrough would mean something. Instead, it's cosmetic, and cosmetic choices don't drive replays. Meaningful consequences do. So if you're designing an open world game and you actually want people to replay it, design it for discovery, build systems, and make choices matter. The difference between games you play once and the games you play forever comes down to whether you're building a theme park or a playground. Theme parks are carefully designed experiences. You ride the rides in order, see all the attractions, and you've done everything. And you leave. Maybe you had a great time, but you're done. You might come back a year or so later if you're not a lunatic, but would much rather go to a different theme park next time around. Playgrounds are open spaces with tools, swings, slides, climbing structures, and kids find 1,000 ways to play with the same equipment. They come back day after day and invent new games with the same tools. Replayable open world games are playgrounds. So here's my question for you. What's your most replayed open world game, and why do you keep going back to it? Drop it in the comments. I'm genuinely curious if there are patterns I missed. And if you want to see more videos breaking down game design principles, I've got one coming up about something that ties directly into replayability. How to write game lore that players actually care about. The kind of world building that makes people want to explore every corner of your world looking for the next piece of the puzzle. But that's for next time.